And now for more information on this, we go live to our special envoy in Moscow, Yunus Soner. Hello, Yunus. It's a pleasure to contact you as always. And tell us, how did you live today's parade? What was the climate on the streets?
Good afternoon from the city center of Moscow. The climate on the streets during the parade was extremely emotional. As you've mentioned in your reports, more than 27 million Soviet citizens have lost their lives during the Great Patriotic War against fascist Germany. So that means there is almost no one here in Russia today who has not lost a family member or a grandfather or a grandfather during that day. So that was the first feeling, emotion that we encountered when we talked to the citizens on the streets. They had photographies of their lost family members, the members who had been fighting against fascist Germany in the Second World War. They were carrying these photographies and they told us the stories, how these family members fought and how they lost their lives. And that was the first dominant emotion here, to remember their lost family members. The second emotion that was also very present was pride. People are very proud of this victory over fascist Germany, and they do not consider it only a victory over fascist Germany, but over a trend of fascism back then, achieved among in difficult circumstances with the Soviet Union as a recently established country in its then form. And the third feeling that we encountered when we talked to the Russian citizens was that of unity. And they interestingly emphasized that the fight against Germany was not only a Russian matter, but it was a joint struggle of the peoples of the Soviet Union. That means they pronounced explicitly that Ukrainians, Belarusians, Armenians, and Azerbaijanis, that means different peoples belonging to the Soviet Union, fought side by side against this German aggression against the Soviet Union, and they emphasized this unity, of course, with an implicit indication that they reject the divisions that exist today among these peoples caused by Western intervention into their politics. So emotional remembering, pride, and a thought of unity were the dominant feelings among thousands of people who lined along the streets where the parade passed along.
Now, Yunus, we've seen the relevant presence of leaders from all across the world, especially from the global south. For example, Venezuelan and Cuban presidents Miguel Diaz-Canel and Nicolás Maduro, when they left the act, they were cheered by the crowds. What do you think this means in this world context?
Well, I can count you about what we lived as correspondents of teleSUR TV. Everyone knows that teleSUR is a South American TV channel, firstly, and everyone greets us. And when we pronounce the name Nicolás Maduro, of course, that greet gets a lot of attention. And then they respond to us with Chavez. So that is also something that is among the people here on the streets of Moscow, something that is very much appreciated. They are very well aware that this is beyond Russia's borders, a union of or a gathering of the global south. And of course, they feel again victorious against Western attempts to isolate Russia diplomatically, to isolate, blockade Russia economically. So the presence of leaders of the global south, and specifically of I must admit that in a proud way, actually, of Latin American leaders who have themselves proven themselves as resistant against US imperialism today, is very welcomed here among the Russian population in the streets of Moscow, in Russia's capital city.
And truly a demonstration of that international solidarity in this context. Thank you so much, Yunus, for this insightful report of what you lived today in that very important parade.
Thank you.